Hey friends, many of you have been asking constantly for me to put together guides on many of the Kingshot signature point scoring events, like Hall of Governors, Strongest Governor, Kingdom of Power, also known as KVK Prep, Alliance Brawl, generally anywhere this fundamental game mechanic gets used, which also includes Kingshot seasonal events too. So I did one better for all of you. I've been spending time over the last few weeks compiling a mega guide that spans across all of these events. Unlike other coverage on this topic, which outlines what types of point scoring opportunities you can expect on which days, I'm going to take a cross-cutting view that shows you every tip, trick, and hack that'll help you score points for each type of activity, irrespective of which event it belongs to. This can help you rank in a top spot, even if you're a free-to-play player. But first, we should level set by talking about the differences in rule sets between each of these event types, since it will impact our strategy a little bit. So there are 4 main variations of this type of event: Hall of Governors, Strongest Governor, Kingdom of Power, and Alliance Brawl. There are also seasonal events that come around every couple months, which also include this multi-day point formula as one of the components they incorporate. All these events follow a similar format where you score points by doing a variety of tasks each day, with rewards provided for both personal milestones and leaderboards on individual days, as well as rewards for overall combined score. The overall combined score is usually where the main prize of the event is provided. Hall of Governors is likely the first encounter you will have with this event format. It starts out with only 5 days, but gains an extra day each time it comes around until capping out at 7. The grand prize event for this is always a hero of the season, which makes the first 3 instances of Hall of Governors the only possible free-to-play way to obtain a copy of Amadeus. Given this comes early in the kingdom's journey, it is characterized by 2 unique aspects. One is that it rewards increases in research and construction power. Late-game variations of this event format instead reward the use of speed-ups, so as not to disadvantage players that are already further advanced with longer research and construction times. Secondly, is that the activities themselves can change quite a bit each time it comes around, since players are unlocking new features like Governor Gear and Charms over time. Next, we have Strongest Governor. When your server hits Age of True Gold around day 70, this event takes the place of Hall of Governors in the super cycle of events. It no longer rewards points for power increases in research and construction, and typically precedes the castle battle that is not the KVK castle battle. While the exact activities and days are different than Hall of Governors, it still provides the hero of the season as the grand prize, along with some temporary skins. In addition to the Kingdom leaderboard, this event has a cross-kingdom leaderboard as well, with additional prizes on top of that. Finally, there are also challenge medals you can earn each day by completing your personal reward milestones. As you accumulate these throughout the event, you gain additional rewards, including featured hero shards and Island Wonder blueprints. Then we have Kingdom of Power, which serves as the prep phase for Kingdom vs. Kingdom competitions, and always lands the week preceding the KVK castle battle. As the name suggests, you are matched with another kingdom based on the combined strength of your top 100 players, and in direct competition with that kingdom to get the highest point total possible. The kingdom with the most points invades the loser's kingdom for the castle battle. In addition to the high geopolitical stakes, the rewards are also quite significant. You get the usual Hero of the Season reward for top ranks, and you also get the Lion of Glory limited island decoration. And again, we see that challenge medal reward mechanic for maxing out your personal milestone contributions each day. This again gives additional rewards like shards for the Hero of the Season and General Wonder blueprints for Oasis Island. You also earn something called Kingdom Coins, which is a currency that can be spent on the Kingdom shop, which has additional great items. Finally, you get chests at milestones for your alliance's total points, and there is a separate alliance ranking leaderboard with even more, albeit slightly lesser rewards. Now sometimes you don't get a Kingdom matchup for KVK, and you get a buy round. This sounds great at first since your castle isn't under threat, you automatically get some Kingdom coins, and you aren't fighting players in another kingdom for personal leaderboard positions. However, it's actually not ideal. Because if you have a bye week, you don't have Kingdom of Power at all, but rather a late game version of Hall of Governors. That means no island blueprints, no exclusive island decorations, no state medals, and no Alliance leaderboard rewards. just a regular vanilla Hall of Governors with some different point values. You don't even get the exclusive items unlocked in the Kingdom of Power shop, even though your server wins its own castle by default. So don't try to cheese this one somehow playing with the power totals of top players. Everyone actually gets far less rewards when you can't do Kingdom of Power. And now let's talk a little bit about Alliance Brawl. Once your server is old enough to be eligible for it, Alliance Brawl bumps out one of the Alliance mobilization rotations so that they can both become a monthly event instead of Alliance mobilization every 2 weeks. It's a 6-day competitive mode against one other alliance from one other server. The winning alliance is determined not by total points scored, but by who wins the most victory points. And victory points are awarded to the alliance that earns the most points in a single day, but different days are worth different amounts of victory points. Alliance Brawl has some more interesting variations on this formula as well. You get some new types of missions linked to Merchant Empire, which runs concurrently. It also offers 2 exclusive island decorations as part of the rewards, like the Merchant Caravan for Alliance wins and the Horn of Victory for personal leaderboard. The leaderboards for personal rewards is also only within your alliance, but it increases the reward total if your alliance wins the overall event. And every time your alliance wins this event overall, it gains an additional star rating that allows you to get better rewards both for your personal leaderboard and for alliance victory the next time the event comes around. And lastly, we have a variety of seasonal events that frequently have a module which follows this formula. It's hard to generalize in this category given the diversity of events, but they typically are 7 days in length and do allow points for gains in power like the early game Hall of Governors events, since they are also active on early servers. You can see this example in the Gourmet Gustation portion of the cheese-themed Kingdom Feast event. As a side note, I'm not quite sure who would want to live in a cheese-based castle, as I'm pretty sure medieval castles smell bad enough already. So here you can see all the variations of this event all in one place. As you will see in a moment, scoring points in many of these events will include consuming harder to get materials like Governor Gear and Charm materials, Forge Hammers, widgets, and more. If you are approaching this from a free-to-play perspective, then your first strategic choice will be to understand what events you are going to compete seriously in versus save up your resources for future events. You will play these events differently as a result of this choice, since one route means trying to find the easiest way to hit all the personal milestones without using resources, while the other is concerned with trying to identify the opportune moment to deploy resources in a way that gets the most points total. For example, we got that bye week in KVK, and I don't plan on building the Gen 3 featured hero Jaeger any further. So this was a perfect time for me to save my resources and experiment for this video. I'm definitely going for that lion statue for my island in our next Kingdom of Power though. And as a quick side note, I think by now you'd see how easy it would have been for me to do the typical YouTube move and make a half dozen different videos for each of these events that repeats 80% of what I'm about to tell you. But I respect your time, and I would appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe buttons to support the channel to offset the additional views I'm giving up by doing this. Thanks in advance. Now let's talk about the actual tasks themselves. Look, there's a lot here, so what I'm going to do is use this Sleepy Hall of Governors event to walk through day by day and share every tip, trick, and hack I use for each type of mission. Let's dive in. So day 1 of our Hall of Governors event requires True Gold or speed ups. Let's talk about them each. For True Gold, this is one of those missions where you are going to need to spend more rare resources. There's no getting around that. In my case, since I was playing for milestones only and had recently hit True Gold level 2, I wanted to start upgrading my infantry and archers toward True Gold 2, so I would be more effective as a rally joiner. If you don't know why that's so important as a rally joiner, then check out my guide to rallies linked below in the description to see the surprisingly few things you should prioritize for joining rallies. Since I didn't want to hold off on upgrading this, it made sense to spend the True Gold for the points and save the speed ups, but more on that in a moment. And there aren't really any tricks I can share about spending True Gold, other than to simply clarify that you get the points as the True Gold is spent when commencing the upgrade, not when the building is finished, so watch out. Also, don't think you can outsmart the game by starting construction and then canceling only to restart. Unlike other resources, you only get half of the True Gold back. I talk about this True Gold trap in more detail in the first episode of my Kingshot Roundup series, linked below in the description. So since there are no tricks on spending True Gold, I'll share some advice on generating it. When your server hits the age of True Gold, it will be fairly scarce. However, you will start getting it from events, both on personal milestones and Kingdom event leaderboards. Your intel missions will also start granting it. And there's also a recurring event called Golden Glaives, which helps you gain True Gold and a bunch of other resources. I posted a hack on this Golden Glaives event relating to cycling the timing of the intel mission so you can maximize the rewards you get from these, and I'm putting a link below in the description for that as well. But over time, the game keeps providing new ways for you to get True Gold. For example, when True Gold levels 4 and 5 are implemented, you can build the True Gold Crucible, which allows you to produce it from basic resources. So the important thing here is to just build it up every opportunity you can and save it for the right moment to use it. Now let's bring in those speed-ups, starting with construction speed-ups, because there's a few strategic considerations to keep in mind here. In this case, I have all of my buildings past level 30, which means every construction project requires True Gold. I accumulate True Gold at a slower pace than the time it takes to build the buildings and accrue speed-ups, which means I have weeks of speed-ups I cannot use. So if I wanted to play for a top rank in this event, then I would build these buildings without using any construction buffs active, and use as many speed-ups as I could fit to simply score points. Since I was only playing for personal milestones in this event and conserving resources, I did the opposite. That is, I stacked as many construction speed buffs as I could, and didn't use speed-ups since I already covered my milestone rewards for the day. Now, if you're in a situation where you're actually going to use speed-ups for points, you need to always consider if you can get more points from the thing you were trying to speed up than the use of the speed-ups themselves. The best example of this is troop training. Given my current troop training speed, I can train a single tier 10 True Gold troop in about 50 seconds, and that drops to 45 seconds when the castle buff is activated for me. So for that 1 minute of speed up, I can train a single troop that will give me 1,960 points on a later event day and have some speed up left over to advance the next troop. This gives a much better return than the 1,500 points for using the speed up itself on this day. And if you haven't seen the late game Hall of Governors before, then even 1,500 points will strike you as an unusually high point return for a minute of speed up. In Kingdom of Power, it's only 30 points while a tier 10 troop yields 60 points, so the difference is frequently bigger. I have yet to see an event where the use of a troop speed up outperforms the resulting points for that troop itself. And now is probably time to layer in some of the missions from early game Hall of Governors or seasonal events, where you can still get points based on the resulting power from construction or research completed. It's a similar logic as with troops, but here the math really depends on what you individually have yet to complete in your town's construction or research. I talk about this in detail in my research prioritization guide linked below in the description, but as a free-to-play player or even low spender, you should really consider holding off on researching battle tech until the Hall of Governors events, since you can get tons of points this way for relatively few speed-ups, and it won't set back your progression as a rally joiner. Shout out to Grandmaster Kev, who commented on that research video that he used this trick to get about 50 million points in Hall of Governors for research alone. Incredible. Construction buildings that might make sense to hold off building for Hall of Governors points also include higher levels of the infirmary, storehouse, and guard station. Each gives great additional strength per level, but won't set back your progression in the same way as holding off on troop production buildings would. And of course, there are some risks relating to this, so be careful if you attempt this on a server without a well-managed non-aggression pact in place. But all in all, the main thing to keep in mind with speed-up point tasks is how they interact with your next best alternative tasks of scoring points. And now we jump into day 2 of this cursed Hall of Governors event. There's a few new missions here for us to dive into. Hero Roulette, which intersects with using hero shards, is a big one. We also have some more resource spending linked tasks, and they are all hard to get ones. Forge Hammers, Widgets, and Mithril. Let's go through them all. Hero Roulette is a big way to earn points relative to all other mission types. If you can spare the gems, that is. As a free-to-play player though, the hero on the Hero Roulette wheel is one of the key things you should actually be saving gems for, since it allows you to get the latest gen hero completely free. Now, Hero Roulette rewards you with additional hero shards at various breakpoints up to 120 spins in total for the event. But you can spin up to 150 times in a day. It just becomes less efficient in terms of hero shards per gem spent once you pass all of the reward milestones. However, if you did 150 spins, you would get a massive lead in Hall of Governors. In this case, it would be 60 million points. And that's before considering that this task appears on days 2 and 3 in this event. Now in theory, if you were sitting on a large stockpile of gems, you could spend on this hero less efficiently in order to win the competition. And it's quite clear that this is exactly the incentive that the developers are trying to create. So as a free-to-play player, you need to be careful that you don't let the tail wag the dog here. In other words, spending gems solely for Hall of Governor points can have a major impact on your account progression. So unless the rewards were something super rare, like that last chance to get a free-to-play Amadeus, then I would take the strategy of first determining how many spins you want to do beforehand and let the points fall where they may. In my case for this event, I was within 100 shards of completing Petra's 4th star, so I didn't want to do any more than 70 spins since I'm already planning on not going for 5 stars with her versus saving for the next hero generation. And since you could earn points over days 2 and 3 for spinning, I actually split my spins between them since I was only playing for daily milestones anyway, and this saved me from having to use other things like forge hammers and such. One other small quirk of this event is that you can get 1 token for a free spin from each of the 3 days of Hero Roulette, which can save you a small amount of gems. Don't use this single spin by itself. Even if you don't have 9 tokens for the 10 spins as the button reads, you can put it toward the gem cost of a 10x spin anyway. This also helps you avoid using extra spins over a breakpoint since the spin rewards are all multiples of 5 or 10. Lastly, and this is a very small thing, since I do all my spins on Hero Roulette during the days where I get Hall of Governor points, I actually save my free token from the last day or two until the next time the Hero Roulette comes around, so I don't waste it outside of the 10x spin. These stay in your inventory after the Hero Roulette event ends. Now after we got these shards from the roulette wheel, we could also choose to use them immediately to get more points for raising our new hero's star level. However, I didn't want to wait a long time to make her 4 stars, but I had already enough points for day 2. And I've yet to see an event that does not have a way to get points for using hero shards on the last day. And in fact, I did not raise her star level until day 7, so I could again avoid spending resources for the milestone rewards. However, points for hero shards in general can be a good way to raise your score in these events if you have them. Please note that you do not get points for turning the general shards into hero-specific shards. However, you do get points for then applying these now hero-specific shards to the hero itself. If you are a free-to-play player, you need to be strategic with when you upgrade your heroes to maximize points in these types of events. Unless you are leading a rally or doing solo march combat, it does not matter if your hero is above 4 stars, since their skills, including priority expedition skills you contribute to rallies, can be maxed out. So my guidance would be to get your key heroes with growth abilities you need to 4 stars so you can take advantage of them, then hang on to extra shards for use in these types of events. And if it's a purple hero that you aren't really using much anyway, then consider just keeping them at a lower star level altogether. This will be one advantage you will have in these events versus whales who likely already maxed out all of their heroes. And that leaves us with our 3 other resource-consuming missions for the day. Forge hammers will be the most likely ones you'll have as a free-to-play player, and you can get these pretty regularly by making sure you and your alliance follow my bear hunt guide linked below in the description. Otherwise, you can occasionally pick them up from events here and there. The main thing here to be mindful of is that forge hammer costs increase each time you forge the same piece of gear. So make sure that you do the math ahead of time so you don't find yourself sitting on 10 forge hammers but no gear to use it on since the costs are too high. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you're a few forge hammers short of that big upgrade you were hoping to do for this event, then you should check out my trick to get free forge hammers on demand in the early game, linked below in the description. Widgets will be quite hard for free-to-play players to get, and to be honest, they don't give you that many more points over forge hammers given how hard they are to get. The mystery shop is one source, albeit a slow one, of accumulating widgets as a free-to-play player. You should refresh the shop every day to see if there are widgets available at a discounted rate. The Buccaneer Bounty event is another good source to pick these up. Please note that the cost of using widgets increases by 5 for each exclusive gear level. So again, this is one of those situations where you don't want to fall into the trap of having a bunch that you can't use. Champagne Fair becomes another great opportunity to get free widgets after you've been playing for a couple months. I'm linking a video below in the description for how to already start saving for this event as a free-to-play player to get all the widgets you can. And lastly, we have Mithril. Honestly, as a free-to-play player, this will not really be a factor for you. This is used to upgrade gear that's already progressing through red levels, which means it's above level 100 in Forge Mastery level 10. So if you somehow are using it, then obviously do it during one of these events, but otherwise, just skip over it. So next, on to Day 3. Day 3 in this late game Hall of Governors event introduces some new missions for us to discuss surrounding investment in pets as well as Governor Gear charms. Let's start with the pets. There are 2 activities relating to pets that give points. One is pet advancement, when you use guides, potions, and medallions to upgrade their abilities and unlock the next 10 levels. And the other is using pet taming marks to refine pets. Notably, I've never seen any tasks for using pet food to upgrade your pet's level, so feel free to do that as you get it, unless you are saving for a specific pet you plan to advance multiple times during the event. For the pet advancement, as a free-to-play player, you will likely be on pace with the ratio of pet food to guides and nutrient potions if you do the pet missions regularly. This will help you get the first 4 levels of each pet's ability fairly easily. Beyond that, you will likely be bottlenecked by medallions, which are quite hard to come by for a free-to-play player. And if you find yourself bottlenecked by medallions and want to get some as a free-to-play player, then the best source that I've found was actually in Buccaneer's Bounty. I generally would prioritize widgets over them, but one time I just dumped all of my pearls into getting about 70 medallions when it came around and was able to get a lot of my pet growth abilities up because of it. And these abilities will have more longevity on your account than widgets, particularly if you are a rally joiner. In addition, you will get a lot more points on Hall of Governors for all of those pet advancement levels, assuming you have all the other resources you need. So it might be good to stock up on those medallions like this at least once. For pet taming, your best source of getting taming marks as a free-to-play player is doing the daily pet missions. However, if you are ever in a pinch, you could buy common marks for 500 gems from the gem store. However, if your sole purpose is simply to get points in Hall of Governor, then all else being equal, those 500 gems will give you more points from an additional spin on the hero roulette wheel instead of the pet taming marks. So I don't think this is such a great strategy. Another free source for pet taming marks and other pet materials that rotate in and out can come from the Alliance Championship store. This might be a good use of points if you are already bottlenecked by Artisan's Vision for Governor gear and thus don't need to buy as much threads and satin. You can also get pet materials in the Arena store, but I would actually prioritize the Mythic Hero gear chest over those for a better long-term account value. And one final consideration regarding pet taming marks, these are actually pretty valuable and have a large impact on health and lethality of your account. Therefore, be careful about just throwing around taming marks on random pets to build up your score in Hall of Governor style events. I have a whole video about the smartest way to spend taming marks on pets to help. It's linked below in the description. And next we get into Governor Gear charms. This is another one where you spend a hard to get material. So as a free-to-play player, it's really about saving and being diligent. That said, there are still a few things we can do on the margins besides just saving. When spending charms, it's important to note that the cost split between charm guides and charm designs changes from level to level. For example, look at this level 2 charm. To take it to level 3 requires 60 guides and 40 designs. But to go from level 3 to 4 requires 80 guides and 100 designs. So if you truly want to optimize the ability to earn points with charm materials, it's worth doing the math to see how many levels you can cross with the supplies you have. Also keep in mind that higher level charm advancements yield greater points, so you could in theory back into your optimal points per material ratio if you were so inclined. Otherwise, the only way to score better here is to increase the rate of gain for these Governor charm materials. One way to do this is through Eternity's Reach, and I have a guide on how to place in the top ranks as a free-to-play player, linked below in the description. So now let's look ahead to day 4. This one has troop training, which is every free-to-play player's favorite day to get points. We already talked about how this is generally a better value for speed-ups than using them on the actual speed-up tasks. However, there are other things we can do for troop training days to further juice the numbers. And one of them you may want to do before the day even starts. In the city bonus window, you have a bonus you can buy which increases the training capacity of troops by 200%. The description is a bit confusing, so let me break it down. First, the increase to training capacity doesn't double. It's an increase of 200%, which means the value actually triples, since an increase of 200% yields 300% of the original total. The other confusing part is that this says it increases time by 200%. This is the game's way of telling you that while the training capacity increases, the total time it will take to train this 3x batch of troops will also be 3 times longer than normal. So it doesn't actually mean you can train troops any faster, really, which begs the question, why would anyone want to do this? Well, the points for this event come when you collect the troops from the training facility, which means if you have about 12 hours to complete a full batch of over 850 troops per building like me, you can trigger this ability a day and a half earlier and have over 2,500 troops times 3 buildings ready to collect right at the server reset when this day starts. So you've just squeezed 9 full batches of troop training into a few seconds at the start of this day if done correctly. This will get you off to a big start that day. Then once the day actually starts, you obviously want to train your troops and use speed-ups, but you can make this even more efficient as well. If your server is past the point where a castle is in play, the king should be using the troop training buff on this day, particularly to help the kingdom during the KVK prep event. Additionally, you should apply for the Noble Advisor position to get the additional boost to training speed for a period of time. And if that's not available, you can try for Chief Minister, which has a much smaller training speed buff. Either way, if you can manage to have these buffs active and stacked together, then that is the time to use all of your speed ups on troop training, as it will make each minute of speed ups go further. Lastly, you should consider this an ideal time to do troop promotions. When you promote a troop, you only get the difference in points between those troop levels in the event, but promoting troops is faster, done in larger batches, and less resource intensive per troop. When you consider the batch size and speed aspects, it can be advantageous versus training a new max tier troop from scratch. Again, this is one of those things where the math is slightly different depending on your current troop training time, which troops you're trying to promote, etc. However, every time I've done the math for my own situation, the troop promotion from one tier down my max is always a superior method by far of gaining points. Some players will even go so far as to intentionally train troops that are one tier below their current max so that they can build up a large reserve to process for points during these types of events. This allows them to squeeze even more points into the day for that same amount of training time and speed ups. Either way, once you have depleted your speed ups, you can train your last batch of troops to be available right before the server reset so that you can get a partial batch completed for some final points. And a fun side note, I ended up training a little bit more than I needed to for this day because I realized that one more batch would push me over 100 million power rating. I don't regret it at all. Day 5 didn't introduce anything new from the previous days, so let's just jump ahead to day 6. Day 6 gave us more troop training, but also governor gear this time. Most of the things I said about scoring points with governor charms also applies to governor gear. It's about saving up and being disciplined, as well as some interesting math at certain breakpoints. In terms of saving up on governor gear, the best sources to do so early on are from the Alliance Championship store and the Viking Vengeance event. I have a video on the latter linked below in the description, and will eventually add one to the channel on Alliance Championships as well. However, once you get a couple stars into blue gear, the governor gear upgrades will start to cost Artisan's Vision. These are extremely hard to get, and you should make them a priority whenever you see them in shops or as an event reward. If played correctly, Merchant Empire can be an unexpectedly lucrative source of Artisan's Visions if you prioritize them in your own caravans, as well as raiding. I have a video linked below in the description on all sorts of tips and tricks with Merchant Empire to help you get there. For the breakpoints I was talking about, you will see that when the Artisan's Vision becomes a necessary ingredient, that the cost for satin and gilded threads drops dramatically. even lower than your first piece of gear. In fact, if you are a free-to-play player and following my guides to play effectively, you will probably end up in a situation where you have an abundance of satin and threads while being bottlenecked by Artisan's Vision. This actually reverses a bit once you get a star or so into purple gear, then the cost for Artisan's Vision temporarily falls below that of blue gear, and the satin and thread cost rises significantly. Therefore, it might be worth considering running one piece of gear ahead of the others so that you can take advantage of this arbitrage and upgrade gear with more balanced resource costs. And one final note here, as you can see just like with Governor Gear Charms, the Governor Gear itself also has different point values for different levels of advancement. However, it doesn't increase every single level to level, and in fact it jumps around up and down quite a bit depending on your progression. So one other thing to keep in mind as you try to optimize your own situation. And now it's time to look ahead at day 7. We have another one of those situations where planning ahead can help us. In this case, day 7 is bringing back almost all of the previous day's tasks, but we have one new one: resource gathering. There are 2 ways you can take advantage of an early start to resource gathering. In my Alliance mobilization guide, linked below in the description, I showed a cool trick I discovered where you activate the Bison's ability and start the cooldown period before you use it. In theory, you could do that here as well, but I don't think that's actually the most optimal strategy for Hall of Governors or similar events. Instead, you could simply send out your troops to gather and time their return for right after the reset, since the points accumulate when your troops deliver the resources home, not while they're actually gathering. This means you can gather 4 to 6 marches of troops depending on how many march slots you have. That beats being able to use the Bison to instantly gather only 2 marches worth of resources. The only reason to do the Bison trick in this case would be if it is during All Out. For example, during this Hall of Governors, All Out fell on days 5 and 6, which made gathering troops fair game for attacks according to the terms of my server's non-aggression pact. So in this case, I actually did the Bison trick, but it is generally suboptimal compared to simply just gathering early. You could also try to combine these in some way, since the Bison ability is only triggered when the gathering troops reach the node. So in theory, you could send out all your troops to gather, then after they reach the resource nodes, trigger the Bison pet ability to start the cooldown. Then after the 0 UTC reset, immediately collect an additional time with the Bison while your gatherers return home. However, I'm not sure even that helps so much. If you do the math, a level 4 Bison skill can already collect twice in one day with the 23-hour cooldown. Level 5 gives you some breathing room, but your troops probably only have a 7 or 8 hour gathering time for a level 8 node. So you can't get a third Bison gathering even with that 19-hour cooldown. You actually need the level 6 ability with the 15-hour cooldown and perfect execution to just squeak by with enough time to gather from a third resource node instantly when using the Bison trick. And I would personally have to wake up at odd hours to time it correctly, so it's not something I've ever attempted to do. So my conclusion to all this is to not try to optimize the Bison trick for this gathering task. It works very well in Alliance mobilization, which allows you to control when the mission is active, but not so much here. That said, there is something else you can be doing during the gathering missions, and that is again in the city bonus window. There are purchasable gathering speed buffs, and they're pretty cheap. You can get an entire 24-hour buff for only 600 gems. Now these must be active when your troops reach the resources to have an impact, so don't use them when you have troops already at the resource nodes without recalling and resending them. And again, the text is confusing in that it says it doubles your gathering speed, but here it is referring to your base gathering speed. It will not double other buffs that you have accumulated on top of it, because those are added, well, additively. Although it goes without saying that you should be investing in these other sources of gathering buffs, such as your economy research tree, Oasis Island decorations, and your blue heroes. In addition to that research prioritization guide I mentioned, I also have one on speeding up progress on Oasis Island, as well as the development of the frequently overlooked blue heroes. Both are linked below in the description. And while this is the end of our exemplar late game Hall of Governors event, there are even more mission types that appear on other event variations. So let me highlight a few of them from Alliance Brawl. The key one I mentioned at the start of the video is the mission that links to Merchant Empire. Here you get 10,000 points for both completing your own caravan journeys and raiding trucks of other players. In addition, you get that loot that's on the caravan itself, which can include up to an additional 10,000 points depending on rarity. You also can steal these Brawl points when raiding enemy caravans. This means if you target the alliance you are facing off against, then you both reduce their points and increase yours simultaneously. I already have that Merchant Empire tips, tricks, and hacks video I mentioned linked below in the description, so I won't rehash all of that here. However, that video has focused on getting the best rewards for Merchant Empire. If your goal is to simply maximize scoring points over your opponent, then you should understand a little bit about the caravan arm race and an additional trick that I'll share. Basically, if you go to the Merchant Empire screen, it will give you one caravan from the enemy, unless you can see a player that attacked your caravan for revenge. I haven't been able to confirm the selection logic, but I believe it is the one that has been traveling the longest. This means that if your alliance is well coordinated, you could have all of your strongest players send their caravans first, thus providing cover fire for your weaker caravans to follow behind. However, if you see your enemy doing this, then you can use one trick I talked about in the Merchant Empire video, which explains how to manually search the enemy's world for additional caravans, which you can share in Alliance chat. It's not perfect, and it's kind of a pain, but it can be a helpful way for your alliance to collectively maximize points versus your opponent for better rewards. Alliance Brawl also gives you points for completing intel missions from the Watchtower. Now you may think you can do the same Golden Glaives trick I mentioned earlier from my other video, however this one works slightly differently. Unlike in Golden Glaives, which rewards you when you turn in the completed mission, these missions actually accrue points when you complete the mission, regardless of when you turn it in. So you can still store up the 8 missions that appear at 16 UTC before the server refresh, but you will not be able to carry over the 8 UTC missions like with the Golden Glaives trick. One additional thing that does count here, which does not during Golden Glaives, is that you can get some mission points for beating the Rebel Bounty mission. You can do this up to 5 times in a single 8-hour mission refresh period. So if you haven't defeated him in a while, this is a great opportunity to attempt him again. Remember, the stamina is refunded if you lose, and you can beat Rebel Bounties way higher than the game's recommended power level. For more information on how to do that, check out the Winning Unwinnable Battles video linked below in the description. Another set of missions you will see come up occasionally is a modified version of the Beast Slaying event, which you get points from for defeating beasts and terrors. The thing to watch out for here is that the points rewards are always different. For instance, the current seasonal event favors defeating terrors when you consider that the stamina for 2.5 beasts is equal to the stamina cost for 1 terror. This is similar to the actual Beast Slay recurring event itself. However, this happens to be at the same time as the Desert Trial event, which gives you the amazing Challenger Pouch and Claw Shard rewards for winning. So in that case, you might want to choose the suboptimal point spread so that you can get one of the best stamina to resource conversions in the game. However, at least in Alliance Brawl, you can reach parity as long as the beast is above level 25. This gives you more optionality on how you want to score points. While it's not strictly free-to-play friendly, if you are a low spender who has bought the Ultra Value monthly card and has auto hunting enabled, then you are well positioned for this sort of event. In addition to getting a ton of stamina, you can set up auto hunt with a party that has Diana and Fahad's abilities stacked to run back and forth quickly against high-level beasts and rack up tons of points in a low-effort but stamina-efficient way. And lastly, there are other missions in Alliance Brawl that reward points for using gems or buying packs. Obviously, the latter is not part of a free-to-play strategy, but even the buying gems aren't that great value since you get so few points compared to other gem-based activities that provide more points like Hero Roulette. Just about the only time I would consider doing this mission is on a day like this seasonal event where my choices are using forge hammers, widgets, or gems, and I just want to hit the milestone rewards. Since I'm close to that next VIP level that will give me orange shards every day, and I was planning on spending these gems anyway, then this is probably a good time to do it. Otherwise, I would probably just skip this day altogether unless the milestone points were super low. You may also very rarely get missions related to hero recruitment, such as in the current seasonal event. In fact, the only time I see this one come up is in seasonal events. So normally you don't need to hold up your progression by saving hero keys for recruitment. Now when Generation 3 heroes come out after about 100 days or so of playing, there is the Call of the Sovereign event which does have tasks for using a preset number of platinum and gold keys, However, there's no leaderboard reward for this event. And since by that point you probably have your heroes mostly built up for max skills, then it makes sense to start saving your keys anyway. But since the Call of the Sovereign event incorporates this so late in the game, my recommendation for free-to-play players in their first 100 days would be to just use your keys to get the core blue and purple heroes plus Jabel early on so you can advance your progression quicker. Even if it means needing to scramble a little bit on a random seasonal event or two, it's just not worth holding everything else up for this one thing. It's also worth noting that these events frequently coincide with other 2-day point events like Armament Competition or Officer Project, which have their own objectives. When you're determining what to do on which day, you should also look to double or even triple dip. I did that here with maxing out Jabel during Alliance Brawl, Armament Competition, and the Gourmet Gustation seasonal event, which all rewarded points on the same day for using hero shards. If you're trying to get milestone rewards while conserving resources, then this is an incredible way to optimize. And one final thought in all of this, I'm giving you all the tools on how to hack these types of events for your advantage, but sometimes the things that will give you the most points may not be what is best for your account overall. So always use your judgment on what trade-offs you are making and what is the right time for the right tool. Whew, and we've covered a lot of ground. So leave a comment below if you have any other strategy tip that you think I somehow missed here, or simply share which of these events and prizes you like to go all in for. Check out the rest of the Kingshot Essentials playlist for other smart guides on must-know Kingshot topics. Thanks again for watching, and happy gaming out there.